I've always considered we were lucky. We would have played for nothing.
Yes! Morgan!
It was a great part of my life. Still is.
Law! Oh, yes! That's a beautiful ball from Best to Morgan, and Morgan's got a real chance here, and he's made it!
I come from a very small mining community in Socky, and all my family are miners. They're all down the pits all their life, and that's where I was heading. Or the other choice was the priesthood, which I didn't fancy. So I'd have gone down the pits. My dad could never understand why someone would pay you to kick a piece of leather around. So I mean, it was an easy life. I mean, it's not like it was hard. It was second nature, playing football. And to get paid for it was a bonus. And of course, it's opened a million doors through the years for me. I'm very lucky. As most people from my era, they all consider themselves lucky to be in football and have played football for a living.
He's done well. Done very well indeed. Morgan the scorer.
You just talked about your dad there, and from the book you get a real sense of a strong passion and devotion to your family.
Yeah, well, it's a strange story. Obviously I didn't know my mother was my mother. I thought she was my auntie, and I thought my dad was my dad, but he wasn't, he was my granddad. But I didn't find out till I was 15 years old when I got the first inkling. So it all made sense, of course, but you never give it a second thought as a kid, you know, you just... I mean, obviously I found out afterwards that my mother was having me out of wedlock. Don't know who the dad is, by the way, as you've probably read in the book, some unknown Italian, if you're out there, babe.
That's where you get your looks from?
Oh yeah, well, and they sent her off, because obviously, you know, in a small Catholic family, in a mining village, it was not very nice. So they sent her away to Glasgow to have the child, and then I was going to be taken away by the nuns or the monks, and God knows what would have happened then. And she would have come back to the village. But she relented and brought me back, because she still lived with the family at that time. The man that she was engaged to was off in the war, and when he came back, apparently he said that he still wanted to marry her, but he didn't want the child. So my grandparents brought me up, but I thought they were mum and dad, obviously. I have no problem with it, you know. My dad's still my dad, you know, with us anymore, obviously. Neither's my mum, my real mum. But the nice thing was that I did get a chance after I found out that she was actually my mother, because she'd gone off and she'd married Bert and had 4 kids of her own. It was nice. That was nice that I got a chance to, not a lot, because I was obviously down in England playing, but it was enough, you know. So.
Akari. And that's a very good goal indeed by Morgan.
My dad's, once when I was 15 and realised that, you know, I was going to play football for a living, he wanted me to go to Celtic, and they tried to sign me when I was 15. I'd never heard of Burnley. I'd never heard of anything. We didn't have a telly in the house, and there was no phones or no communication. It was a little village, and I think there was about a dozen of us living in this little tiny house. And when the scouts started coming to the house to say, would he come, you know, he can come and have a look and if he likes it. And he said, well, what happens? He said, well, we pay him when he's there. And he said, you pay him? I said, yeah. So what do you pay him? £8 a week. And my dad worked about 60 odd hours in the pit face every week and got paid about £3, 10 shillings, what would it be, £3.50p in present day money. And he couldn't understand this. The thing that worried my dad more than anything, that somebody in England would stab me, because he said the English are the enemy, you know, they'll stab you when you're sleeping, and he really was paranoid about letting me go. And when I told him, I said, "Oh, they're really nice, Dad, the English people." And, okay. And I said, after 6 weeks, Harry Potts was the manager, said, "You know, would you stay here?" And I said, "Yeah, I'd love to stay here." It was really, I had made friends, and my dad was very disappointed, of course. And that didn't go back to Celtic. And that's why I stayed at Burnley. I said they weren't on the, I wasn't going to be staying there. It was just fate.
But of course, talking about those Burnley days, and you were very much part of their glory days at that time.
You know, I came through it very, very quickly and made a debut at 18, which is rare. And you know, it was wonderful. I got stardom's not the right word, but you know, being recognised and doing things and was fantastic. And I don't know if it's in the book. I remember when I was 18, I'd got all these headlines and everyone saying, "Oh, he's a great player and he's this and that." And I'd gone home at New Year time, and we still had an old open fire, coal fire, and the coal was in the cellar outside, and it was freezing. It was snow and freezing. I'd driven up, and we were all sat around the fire all day, and every time it went low, one of the family would get up and go outside and get a shovel full of coal, put it on. My Auntie Margaret, she said, "Oh, I'll go and get a shovel," and my dad said, "You, it's your turn." I said, he said, "It's your turn, go and get coal." And I said, "Oh, okay, Dad, I'm going to go get coal." And he pulled me aside and said, "Let me tell you something. Enjoy the publicity. Don't believe it. And when it's your turn to get the coal, you just go and get the coal." I said, "Okay." He said, "You know, I've been after you for a long time, and now this opportunity's come up. I'd like to sign you. We've made an offer to Burnley that they accepted." He said 117,000. He said, "Would you like to come here?" So I said yes. And my mind's racing, of course, because I'm thinking, I have to ask him, you know, what they're going to pay me. And he says, "Is there anything you want to ask me?" And I said, "Oh, no, everything's fine. Anything you would like?" And I said, "Well, I'd like to play number 7. He said, "Yeah, okay, you play number 7. George will go to number 11.
Morgan.
And then he said, "Is there anyone here now that you don't like?" I said, "Well, I don't like Nobby Stiles." He said, "Oh, you'll love Nobby. Nobby's lovely." He said, "The lads will be arriving soon, some of them, for the match." They were playing Chelsea here that day. And he brought Nobby up. And he came in, Nobby, and you know, and he could, you know, he can hardly see. And he said, "Oh, this is Willie," and he just signed him. And Nobby said, "Oh, fantastic." And he turned out what an absolute lovely human being, Nobby. Not in the pitch mind, but he was a lovely human being.
Obviously playing under Sir Matt was a really exciting time, and we know in the past you've said that he's the greatest manager you've ever played under, and you still stand by that?
Oh yeah, he was the best. He was the best, without doubt.
You've just touched on some of your teammates throughout that, and you said that you were all very close off the pitch. Who would you say that you would have socialised with the most? We know you had a great relationship with George Best, for example.
Well, yeah, because I used to see George in town all the time. We used the same clubs.
I'm sure 2 big memories for you, particularly in your first couple of years, were playing against the Estudiantes in 1968 and of course the European Cup semi-final against Milan. What's your memories of both those games?
We were robbed. We were robbed in Estudiantes in the first match. We scored a goal when it was 0-0. It was a good goal, and they disallowed it. Then they sent Nobby off. And Nobby didn't do anything, but they sent him off. And as you know, we lost 1-0 in the end. And then when we came here, they sent George off. And I think we drew 1-1. I scored that night, I think.
United took a free kick that brought them a goal from Willie Morgan. United's joy was ecstatic.
We were robbed when we were there. We weren't robbed there. But the referees were wrong. George getting sent off and Nobby was stupid, because they didn't deserve to. AC Milan, the referee, he was right on the spot. The ball crossed the line. I followed it in. I turned away to get hold of Dennis, because Dennis had knocked it in. The guy scooped it out, and the referee played on.
That's kicked to Crennan. And the referee's let it go. Surely that was over the line, and the referee says no.
We were robbed, and I think we would have gone on and won the European Cup again. So that was a major disappointment.
Tell us about the time whenever Sir Matt did stand down. How much of a shock was it for you as players?
It was a major shock, because no one knew. I was gutted, as most of the players were. It was a big shock. But as you do, you know, say okay. And then he appointed Wilf, which I think at the time was a new innovation. To appoint someone from within the club was, I don't think it had been done before. And the idea was right, because then you just continue as you are. You know, you're not bringing in new backroom staff, new this, new that. It was a continuation. The only thing, it was the wrong man. And I was on my way home from the cliff, and Crennan drew up next to me and said, "Boy, Wilf's got the sack. You better look at the team sheet." Because Paddy, myself, I mean, Wilf dropped everyone. And we went and looked at the team sheet for the following day then, and Matt had, I think there was 7 changes or 9 changes to the previous week's team. All the old players came back, and we beat them. We went and we beat Liverpool. And it was just wonderful to have the gaffer back, but obviously it didn't last.
Charlton picking that off ball. Morgan. And number 3.
Tommy came in, and you did say as well in your book that you were actually quite delighted with the appointment at the start.
Absolutely. Dennis and I had been on we'd played in the Home Internationals and then gone off to Brazil to play in the Mini World Cup in 1972. Tommy was the Scottish manager, and
it was a very important game for you as well, that, wasn't it? Lots of people
yeah.
Zagallo and Pele saying you're the best winger in the world during that game.
Yeah, Brazilian manager. And it was very important. You know, I got man of the match. They beat us 1-0 in the end, mind, but and Docherty was great. He was fantastic. He wasn't a coach either. You know, he picked a blend. You have to have a blend, I keep saying. And he did, and he knew a good player, and he was very good. And when I came back from there, I'd been playing golf at Mere with Sir Matt. And when we came off, and he never discussed football. When we played golf, we played golf. We had a regular 4-ball. We played 2 or 3 times a week with Peter Collins, Danny Curran, Sir Matt and I. And he asked me, he said, "What do you think about Tommy Docherty?" I said, he was fantastic. He said, "Oh, okay, thank you." That was a Thursday. And I went home afterwards. A couple of hours later, the gaffer phoned me at home and said, "You wouldn't happen to have Tommy Docherty's phone number?" And I said, "Yes, I do." He still lived in Scotland at that time. So I gave the gaffer the number. Tommy got the job on the Saturday. So, and I thought I thought he'd be great. I mean, and he was initially. You know, he came in. But he blighted his football knowledge. And he could have, he could have been a great manager.
Just come back to the 1973-74 season, and that was his first full season in charge, but very much a dramatic decline for United.
Mm-hmm.
Also, you didn't have Bobby Charlton, Dennis Law and George Best anymore.
Most of the time George and Bobby were still here. It was only latterly that they went, and you're going to miss Dennis, you're going to miss Bobby and George. We also missed Nobby, Tony Dunn, who left. I mean, they were big losses. Bill Fowkes had retired. It was a difficult period.
Ball for Brian Greenough. And look at Morgan in so much space now. Willie Morgan for Manchester United. And that's a beautiful goal.
I said, we came straight back up, as you know. We had a fantastic season. And then he obviously had his own ideas.
Obviously there was a big Scottish influence at Old Trafford when you were here, and they were sometimes known as Manchester. And to coincide with that time, Scotland, well, they were a very iconic side at that time in 1974.
Yeah, well, Docherty, in fairness to him, he created the start of the great Scottish team. And in spite of all my problems with him, I believe if he had stayed on as the Scottish manager, we would have gone very close to winning the World Cup that year, because it's the best Scottish squad they've ever had.
Morgan, if he can put it back, he's got Best and McElroy.
And I know then after that you did go on to play for Bolton, and then what was very popular in those days was players going to America to play.
Bill Fowkes was the manager of Chicago Sting, and he approached me 2 years prior, and I said, yes, I'll come next season. And then when it got around to summer, I thought, I didn't want to spend 3 months in America, and I pulled out. I did it again the following season. I pulled out, said I would go. And then the third time, Bill came back and said, look, what do you want? Just write it out as well. So we agreed terms, agreed everything. I said, I'll definitely come next year. He said, can I take your word? I said, I'll definitely come next year. A guy arrived on my doorstep in December, and he said, hi, I'm Lee Stern, I own this thing. What do you want? I just came in. He said, can I come in? She's freezing. She said, come in. And he was with Bill, and he said, can I take you for dinner? So we went out for dinner in Altrincham, and he said, look, what do you want? What do you want to make sure that you will come next season? Because you've done this twice now that you've... I said, no, I've agreed to contract with Bill, and, well, do you want more money? I said, no, I've agreed to contract, and I'm happy. You don't want any more money? He said, do you like anything in America? I said, I love Elvis. And he said, oh, do you know Elvis does Las Vegas in the summer and whatever, you used to do 4 or 5 stints there. I said, yes, I do. So I said, well, would you? He said, I've got a private jet. I will fly you to Las Vegas to see Elvis. I said, well, if you can do that, I can get one of my friends to get me in to meet him. So I said, would you put it in my contract? He said, yes, I'll put it in your contract. So I had my contract in 1977 that he would fly me to Vegas to see Elvis, and I would arrange to meet him. And of course Elvis didn't do the show because he was ill, and that's when he died that year, later on. But he cancelled the summer shows in Vegas, and I was distraught, absolutely distraught.
In the book as well, we learn a little bit more about you outside of football, your love of other sports, particularly golf and snooker, and you had quite a lot of showbiz friends.
Yes, I have, yeah. Snooker, well, I'm godfather to Alex Higgins' 2 children, and I thought the world of him. He was a little bit of an enigma, good side, bad side, but I saw the good side.
Well, tell us about your wedding. Who's
My
best man
wedding?
at that?
Johnny Mathis. John was Kay and I's best man. We got married in Las Vegas 5 years ago, and we got married in the Graceland Chapel, which is the closest I could get
Very
to Elvis.
fitting.
I know. And of course, you know, the thing was you get an Elvis impersonator, which I wouldn't do. And so John was my Kay and I's best man.
And obviously you share a bit of a love for Celtic with a certain Rod Stewart.
Yes. Yeah. Rod he loves Man U and Celtic. Yeah, we had a lot of good times together. One of the things that we actually did, he hired a plane to take us from London up to Hampden for the Scotland-England match. And we arrived outside the ground in a coach that a friend of his had put on. And then about 25 to 3, he said, "What would you be doing now?" And I said, "Well, I don't know. I'd probably just be sitting around reading the paper or putting a bet on or something like that." He said, "It'd be the greatest thing in my life to be in the dressing room before the match." So I said, "Leave it with me." I get out the coach, get through the crowd, get to the door. The commissioner said, "Oh, Willie, how are you? Are you coming in?" I said, "No, could you do me a favour? Could you go to the dressing room quickly and ask Jock Stein, the manager of Scotland, ask Jock if I can bring a friend in for a couple of minutes?" The commissioner said, "Willie, it's nearly 20 to 3 now." I said, "I know, but it'll only take a minute." So he went in. A minute later, Jock Stein came out, gave me a big hug, you know, "Great to see you." I said, "I've got Rod Stewart in any chance I can bring him in just to say hello." He says, "Only 20 minutes to kick off." I said, "I know, Gaffer." He said, "Go, hurry up, bring him in." So Rod went in, and it was like Alice in Wonderland. But it was for the players as well, because when Rod went in, the players were like, "Oh my God, Rod Stewart," you know. But Rod was like a little kid. And that was nice. And that, again, without Jock Stein, obviously, wouldn't happen, because you never did that. No one was allowed in the dressing room before the kick-off.
Willie Morgan, on the way. Willie Morgan, on the way.
Trying to place it, and he has indeed. What a superb goal by Willie Morgan.
United, it's an institution, you know. It's just fantastic. And the years that I had here, whatever they have now, those years won't be beaten. I think I played at the right time with the right players and for the right manager. It doesn't get any better than that in your life.